This house is now mine. There's no room for you, Rachel, so get out already." My mother-in-law cheerfully shouted, leaving my husband Bob and I stunned. Returning home to our apartment in the city after successfully giving birth back in my hometown, we found the door unlocked. Fearing that an intruder might have gotten in, we entered cautiously, only to be greeted by my mother-in-law, drinking tea in the living room and making her bold declaration. "My name is Rachel. I met Bob at a social gathering and later we got married. From the start, my mother-in-law didn't seem to like the fact that Bob and I had met at such an event. A woman who attends such a scandalous event will never be my daughter-in-law," she muttered from the moment we first met. But I silenced her with a smile, saying, "But Bob also attended that scandalous gathering, you know." Of course, the event Bob and I attended was nothing scandalous. It was hosted by our colleagues from work. My mother-in-law, a single mother, raised Bob with great care. So it seemed that she was truly sad when Bob moved out to get married. That seemed to be the reason she was always picking on me. My strong heart prevented her attacks from working. My mother-in-law frequently invaded our home, deliberately taking the train over without an appointment. As a salaried worker who only goes into the office about once a week and works from home the rest of the time, I couldn't ignore her persistent doorbell ringing and door knocking, especially considering the nuisance for the neighbors. Bob, whose job requires him to go in every day, is not at home during the day. My mother-in-law, calculating the time when her beloved son Bob isn't around, comes to our house and constantly complains to me. She complains about dishes piling up in the sink, about the laundry accumulating. She goes through every room without hesitation. And when she comes over and complains whenever she sees household chores being done, casually. Then, as if it were her catchphrase, she would sigh, "Poor Bob, to have such a wife. I should have raised him to hold such a much higher standard for women." As for Bob, who she pities, he really loves me, which is a disappointment to my mother-in-law. Originally, I preferred older, dapper men, but Bob, who is 3 years younger than me, pursued me fervently, which led us to dating and eventually marrying. So when my mother-in-law picks on me, Bob gets very angry. I always reported to Bob what my mother-in-law said, so each time Bob would call her saying, "Mom, it's a hassle when you come without calling. Rachel isn't just hanging around at home, she's working." Well, even so, my mother-in-law never stopped coming unannounced, and instead, she often snapped at me saying, "Why did you tell Bob?" Even before giving birth, I got used to my mother-in-law's unannounced visits and complaints about housework, and no longer directly confronted her complaints. Without taking my eyes off the computer screen, I casually responded to all my mother-in-law's complaints with, "I'm sorry, I'll do it next time." Despite my attitude, I felt sorry for my mother-in-law, who is desperately trying to torment her daughter-in-law. Bob and I shared the housework, and I didn't care about the complaints from my mother-in-law. I didn't think much of it, saying, "She's at it again." But the words she said when I reported my pregnancy were really harsh. "You're pregnant? Whose child is it?" Bob and I hugged each other in joy. He was so eager that he was already stroking my flat belly, saying, "I can't wait to meet the baby." And yet, my mother-in-law seemed to think that I had made a child with another man. "Huh?" I instinctively responded, to which my mother-in-law continued with an angry expression. "You've betrayed Bob and made a child with another man, haven't you? After all, you're unattractive and 3 years older than Bob. A woman like you and my Bob couldn't possibly have a child." In response to my mother-in-law's confident statement, I blew up. "That's impossible! Please go home!" When I said that, my mother-in-law left the house laughing and saying, "See, you're angry because I hit the nail on the head. I'm going to report this to Bob." As she promised, my mother-in-law seems to have told Bob that Rachel is trying to make you raise a child from another man. But Bob cut off her argument with a simple, "That's impossible. Rachel would never hurt me." Bob, who said this with a laugh, was truly kind, and I was sincerely glad to be married to him. Several months had passed since I found out I was pregnant. I had returned to my childhood home to prepare for the birth. My family's home is quite far from Bob's office, so he usually stays behind at our apartment. I miss you when you're not home, Rachel. Bob would say this, and while I thought it was sweet, I took the opportunity to spend some quality time with my parents at my family home. Then came the day I gave birth. As soon as my mother informed Bob that I was in labor, he immediately took time off work and hurried over. Seeing me in pain, Bob held my hand and, looking like he was about to cry, said, "I wish I could take your place." I think I was delirious from the pain because I yelled back, "Then do it!" "Sorry, Rachel, I can't." Of course he refused, but Bob encouraged me through my labor, and I finally gave birth to our baby. When they handed me our tiny newborn, I felt a warmth well up inside me. Was this what it meant to be a mother? I was so moved. I cried. Bob was also deeply moved and repeatedly thanked me. We named our son Jacob and spent a few peaceful days at my family's home while we settled into our new roles as parents. Having a baby completely changed our daily rhythm, and there were many challenging aspects. But I believed that we could overcome anything as long as we were together. But when we returned to our apartment in the high-rise, we found the door unlocked and my mother-in-law drinking tea in the living room. Even though she always acted as if the apartment was hers, I had no idea why she was in our home. "Bob, did you give your mom a key?" "No, I didn't." When I quietly asked Bob, he vehemently shook his head in denial. Upon seeing this, my mother-in-law snorted and showed us a key she had placed on the table. "I saw the key hanging at the entrance, so I borrowed it to make a copy." Indeed, we had a key hook at our entrance and would leave our key there, but I never thought my mother-in-law would steal it and make a copy. I was taken aback by her audacity. Seeming pleased with herself, my mother-in-law finally noticed Jacob in Bob's arms and stood up. "Well," my mother-in-law smiled as she looked at Jacob's face. Then she spoke to Bob. "Isn't that Rachel's child with some unknown man, Bob? You don't need to hold him. You're not the victim here. Just go home with me, Bob. You don't need to have anything to do with a woman like Rachel." "You're still saying that? This is our child. I don't mind if you have a DNA test done." "Why should I have to do that? It's obvious when you look at him. The baby is ugly. Just like Rachel. He looks nothing like my handsome Bob." As she said this, my mother-in-law looked from Jacob to Bob. Then, seeing the look on Bob's face, she froze. Bob was glaring at her, a furious expression on his face. "Bob, I've always told you not to come to our place without asking, and not to say mean things to Rachel, and yet you've made a duplicate key, and you've come here? What is this?" "I was just trying to protect you." "What you're doing is not protecting me. All you've done is cause trouble for me. Rachel and Jacob are not ugly. Rachel is beautiful, and Jacob has a cute face. Don't insult my family." "Your family is supposed to be me, right?" In response to his mother's shaky question, Bob calmly replied, "My family is Rachel and Jacob." While my mother-in-law was frozen in shock, I gathered up our valuables. "Let's go somewhere else, Bob. Your mom seems to think this is her place." "Where are you going?" To my mother-in-law's shrill question, I cheerfully replied, "That's none of your business. You said there's no place for me here, and I have work to do. So, we're moving. Goodbye." And with that, Bob and I left the apartment. As we left, Bob asked, "What should we do? Change the locks?" But considering that we were about to start raising Jacob, I didn't think I could stand living in a place where my mother-in-law could drop in unannounced every day. No, let's move. We'll sell that house for now. We might just rent a weekly apartment. Upon agreeing with my proposal, Bob and I temporarily moved into a weekly apartment. During that time, Bob and I rented an apartment in a new condominium, and so we began moving out of the house my mother-in-law insisted was hers. She truly seemed to believe she could occupy the room in the tower residence where we used to live, and showed a confused expression when I let the movers in, exclaiming, "What's going on?" "This room you might think is yours, mother-in-law, but it's a house that Bob and I bought. The ownership of this house is Bob's, so you don't have any legal ownership, mother-in-law. Bob has decided to sell this house, so it would be better for you to find a new house soon. I said this while holding Jacob. Watching Bob give brisk instructions to the movers, my mother-in-law turned pale. Because she could just return to her original house, I was wondering why she was so panicked. But my mother-in-law answered my question with her next words. I have nowhere else to live but this house. I have already terminated the contract for my previous house. The apartment where my mother-in-law lived was a rental. I was surprised that she had terminated the rental contract to live in this room. Bob, who had been listening to the conversation from a distance, was also surprised. My mother-in-law begged Bob and me, saying, "Please let me live in the house." But Bob didn't allow it. As a final act of filial piety, Bob gave my mother-in-law a little money and told her, "You should be able to get back on your feet if you rent a room with that money." Still unable to bear the fact that she was being abandoned by her adorable son Bob, my mother-in-law clung to him, crying, "Where will you live, Bob? I'm lonely. Please live with me." But there was no way Bob would allow this. I told you over and over again to stop bullying Rachel, but you didn't stop, Mom. I appreciate that you raised me, but I wanted you to be happy that I've become independent and have a family. You relied too much on me, Mom. I think it's better for both of us if we never see each other again. At Bob's words, my mother-in-law collapsed in tears, saying, "No way!" But Bob's determination did not waver. Of course, since I didn't tell her the address of our new apartment, mother-in-law could no longer come uninvited. Thinking, I won't have to see my mother-in-law anymore. What a great relief. On the night we completed the move, my mother-in-law, who seemed to have calmed down, called Bob and I numerous times. Busy taking care of Jacob, I hadn't paid attention to my smartphone and was startled to see the large number of missed calls late at night, so I set it to reject her calls. As her only son, Bob couldn't completely abandon his mom and took her calls for a while. But every time Bob answered the phone, she began to spew insults about me. She even said that Bob was being brainwashed by me, and Bob seemed to be fed up with the phone ringing at all hours of the day and night. Even kind and patient Bob seemed to be at the end of his tether as these days continued. Mom, I've tried not to abandon you because you are my mother and you raised me with care, but I'm at a limit. Despite my repeated warnings, you won't stop bad-mouthing Rachel. And I don't think you'll ever change, Mom. I won't answer the phone anymore. But I hope you can forgive me. Bob seemed to feel a great deal of guilt for abandoning his own mother, but he would break down if he had to listen to his wife being bad-mouthed every day. Having received the declaration of severance, my mother-in-law was crying on the other side of the phone. But Bob firmly cut off all ties with her since then. Despite Bob, the landlord, telling her to leave within a week, my mother-in-law refused and continued to live in the empty room. Confused by my mother-in-law's refusal to leave, we consulted a lawyer. When we conveyed through the lawyer that we might end up suing her, it seems my mother-in-law finally left the house. We don't know what kind of life my mother-in-law has been leading since then, but she had been receiving financial support from Bob. So now that that's gone, I think she must be living a financially strained life. On the other hand, Bob, Jacob, and myself are living a peaceful life in our newly purchased home. We were relieved when a new tenant quickly bought the room in the tower residence that we had decided to give up. Bob has taken paternity leave, so I'm not struggling with single-handedly raising our child. I can raise Jacob calmly and peacefully. You're always working so hard, so I'll pick up the slack with the house chores during my paternity leave, Bob said, who has been taking the lead in doing housework. Honestly, Bob is such a wonderful husband that I feel he's too good for me. Even when we had to deal with taking over my mother-in-law's house, I'm truly grateful to Bob who stood with me through that ordeal. Recently, Jacob has learned to crawl and has been exploring the house. I spend my days smiling as I watch him with Bob.
If you have a problem with anything, get out of my house. Anytime. Right now, I'm being verbally abused by my sister-in-law in my own house, a house that's in my name. I gave her every chance in the world, and she just trampled all over my kindness. I won't show mercy to such a person any longer. I'll make her pay for her actions and make her regret everything she's done. My name is Emma, a 29-year-old housewife. I had been living happily with my husband John, whom I married 2 years ago. My father-in-law passed away before we got married, and 6 months ago, my mother-in-law slipped on the stairs of her apartment and broke her leg. The injury left her with a lingering numbness, and it became difficult for her to continue living as she used to. Given these circumstances, she started living with John and me. The house we live in was passed down to me by my father. My dad loves to travel, and he even bought a motorhome. He left the house he'd been living in to me and started a life in his motorhome with my mother. I decided to take advantage of my father's kindness and began living in the house he'd given me. Now, considering the care for my mother-in-law, I'm glad I accepted the house from my father. Emma, I'm sorry for moving in and needing your care, my mother-in-law said. It's okay, mother-in-law. Please, don't worry about it, I responded. From the first time we met, I liked my mother-in-law because she always maintained a healthy distance. That's why when she got injured and my husband suggested she move in with us, I could accept it without hesitation. Then, one day, a storm blew into our peaceful life. The doorbell rang while I was in the middle of cleaning the house. Yes, who is it? When I opened the front door, there stood my husband's sister, Jessica. Hey there, Emma! Long time no see! Oh, Jessica? Don't be so surprised. We're sister-in-laws after all. Well, about that sister-in-law thing. To be honest, I've never really been fond of my husband's sister, Jessica. She had been living with her husband for quite some time before John and I got married. She recently had a baby, but she demanded a hefty baby gift from my mother-in-law and never let us meet her grandchild. Not to mention, she was utterly selfish at our wedding. This food is awful! Totally killed my mood. She had no problem loudly complaining about everything. When my mother-in-law got injured, she dumped everything onto John, saying, "You're the older brother, aren't you? You should take care of this." She didn't even come to check on my mother-in-law. And of course, she was just as disrespectful to me, saying things like, "So, you're Emma, huh? You're kind of plain." The first time we met. I can never forget the shock of that day. Jessica always has something unnecessary to say, and that's why I never had a good impression of her. When she showed up unannounced that day, I had a bad feeling about it. "Jessica, what brought you here?" I asked. In response to my question, my sister-in-law Jessica shrugged her shoulders rather exaggeratedly. "Well, you see, I'm a little strapped for cash right now. Could you lend me $1,000? No, make that $2,000? What? $2,000? That's too much. I hurriedly retorted, but Jessica showed no sign of backing down. In fact, she even aggressively asked for $1,000. Should I just lend her the money and get her to leave as quickly as possible? A fleeting thought crossed my mind, but given Jessica's personality, once I lent her the money, I knew I wouldn't get it back. I decided to firmly refuse. "No matter how much you ask, I can't. I'm sorry. We have our own lives to live." At that, Jessica's mood worsened abruptly. "Just give me the money. How dare you defy your sister-in-law?" Just as I thought she had shouted enough, she suddenly pushed me on my shoulder, causing me to fall on my rear. Looking down at me, Jessica smirked and extended her hand. "Come on, lend me the money now." That made me really mad. "Can't do! Please leave!" I forcibly ejected Jessica and locked the door. "Hey! Open up! Are you listening to me?" Jessica shouted from the porch. Reacting to her voice, my mother-in-law handled it for me through the door. "If you're going to make any more noise, I'm calling the police." Jessica instantly quieted down, stating, "Fine, I'll be back," before she left that day. After confirming Jessica's departure, my mother-in-law apologized to me. "Emma, I am really sorry. My daughter caused you so much trouble." "Mother, it's okay. In the end, I didn't lend her any money. But still, I'm truly sorry. It must have been unpleasant for you." My mother-in-law seemed to feel a lot of guilt, and she kept apologizing. I couldn't help but wonder how such an arrogant daughter could have come from such a humble mother. When my husband, John, came home that night, I told him everything that had happened. Upon hearing the story, his face turned beet red with anger. "What the? That's too much of a nuisance. Emma, I'm really sorry. I don't even know how to apologize." My husband bowed his head to me. Seeing this, my mother-in-law once again apologized. And so, the day ended with an incredibly awkward dinner. The next day, the intercom rang again. Through the door, I could hear Jessica's cloying voice. "Emma, darling, please, I won't do anything weird anymore. Just lend me the money and I'll leave right away." Oh boy, 2 days in a row? Even I was taken aback. Unfortunately, my mother-in-law was out, so I was home alone. I cautiously opened the door with the chain on, and Jessica peeked in with great enthusiasm through the gap. "Oh good! You opened it! So, about yesterday..." "Jessica, like I said before, I can't lend you money." At my preemptive strike, Jessica frowned for a moment, but then quickly began to feign tears. "But if things continue like this, I'll starve to death with my daughter." "Starve to death? What do you mean?" "I'm in debt to my husband." Sensing that I had taken the bait, my sister-in-law Jessica immediately responded. "Because of these debts, I can't even live properly. I don't even have anything to eat for tomorrow. Do you understand how I feel?" Really? Are you kidding me? Who does she think would sympathize with such a cheesy sob story? Does she expect me to say, "Oh, that's tough. Let me lend you some money"? While I felt like pointing out the absurdity of her claim, I responded calmly. "I understand you're going through a hard time, but we have our own lives to live. I'm sorry." Upon hearing this, Jessica instantly stopped her sobbing act and her face twisted into an angry scowl. "What? You're just gonna abandon me in my time of need?" Seeing this conversation was going nowhere, I quietly closed the door. Jessica was still ranting and raving at the front door. After a while, my mother-in-law returned from her day service. "You! Are you causing trouble again? I told you I'd call the police, didn't I?" At my mother-in-law's stern words, Jessica hastily made her exit. "Emma, I'm sorry you had to deal with all this while I was away." My mother-in-law apologized, looking sorry. I cheerfully replied, "Oh, don't worry about it. I kept that chain on the door today. Plus, you returned just in time, so that was a relief." That night, the three of us, my husband John included, were all talking about Jessica. "Next time she comes, you don't have to answer. She'll only take advantage if we keep dealing with her." Upon hearing my husband's words, I decided to ignore Jessica from then on. A few days later, after a period of silence, Jessica returned to our house. Ignoring the incessantly ringing doorbell, I suddenly heard a loud "Ah!" from afar. It clearly wasn't Jessica's voice. Was that a baby crying? Both my mother-in-law and I exchanged glances. Cautiously opening the door, we saw Jessica holding her daughter. "Wait, Jessica, what's happening?" "Yeah, what's the big idea bringing a child here all of a sudden?" My mother-in-law and I were in complete panic. Ignoring our shock, Jessica began to explain. So, here's the thing. I just got divorced from my husband. I have nowhere else to go, so I thought I'd stay at your house for a while. Wait, you're planning to stay here? My mother-in-law and I were left speechless. Living with such a nuisance is not a joke. However, we couldn't abandon a crying baby right in front of us. My mother-in-law felt the same, and understandably so, as this was her long-awaited first grandchild. Hey, it's okay, right? I can do household chores and help care for Mom. Jessica, whining like a child. After exchanging glances with my mother-in-law, I sighed deeply. Fine, if it's just for a few days. And so, we ended up taking in Jessica and her child. So, I'll be intruding from now on. Saying that, Jessica strode into the house. My husband John, who just got back from work, was utterly stunned. Why is Jessica here? Well, it's a long story. No kidding. Even my husband, who was furious, seemed completely defeated by the little baby. When you calm down, can you please find a job and look for a house? After saying that to his sister, he left the room. But there was no way that Jessica would help around the house. She only spent her days lounging around, watching TV. Furthermore, she dumped the responsibility of taking care of her child onto me and my mother-in-law, living completely as a NEET. Jessica, could you go shopping for us? If I even dared to ask that, she would completely refuse. Excuse me? Why should I? Isn't that your job, Emma, the housewife? Could you at least clean the house, then? Stop bothering me! Don't order your sister-in-law! This was how our exchanges always went. My mother-in-law and husband had tried to reprimand her several times, but she showed no signs of remorse. Moreover, she used her own daughter as leverage, saying, "Do you want to drive me and my daughter out? Are you okay with us starving?" I, reaching the end of my patience, vented my frustrations about Jessica. Enough is enough. We only let you live here because you said you would help with the housework. If you're not going to do anything, then please leave this house. Jessica looked surprised for a moment, but then sneered. Excuse me? Aren't you the one living here off my brother's income? As a mere housewife, living off my brother's hard-earned money. How dare you tell me to leave? If you have a problem, why don't you be the one to leave this house? She doesn't get it. This house was a precious gift that I received from my father. If I back down now, it'll be exactly what she wants. I have to fight back. This house was passed down to me from my father, meaning it's under my name, Jessica. You have no right to tell me anything. So what? Jessica looked down on me and said, "You're going to drive out a mother with a 10-month-old child? If you can, do it, you heartless woman!" At that moment, the emotions I had been suppressing exploded. I've reached my limit. I'll make her regret ever looking down on me. I turned to face Jessica. Fine, I'll leave. Do whatever you want. What? Everyone in the room was taken aback. Jessica then started to smirk. Oh, really? Sorry about that. Well, a mother raising a child is more important than just a housewife like you. With a mocking tone, Jessica took her daughter and left the room. Hey, Emma, what was that all about? My husband John and my mother-in-law were shocked. To them, I revealed a plan I had been concocting. 2 weeks later, the day to execute the plan had come. Jessica, I'm leaving. Without taking her eyes off her phone, Jessica just shooed me away. Yeah, goodbye. Don't come back, okay? Then, John and my mother-in-law came in. We're leaving too. Huh? Jessica was caught off guard by John's statement. Wait! What does that mean? I thought only Emma was leaving. There's no way that's true. Both your mother and I are on Emma's side. We're cutting ties with such an unreasonable sister like you. What? How dare you? My mother-in-law also counters my husband. It seems like we made a mistake raising you. We sincerely apologize to Emma. We don't think of you as our daughter anymore. From now on, do as you please. Wait! Just hold on a sec. Are you just going to abandon me, Mom? You'll never see your grandchild again. Unfazed, Jessica's mother brushed her off. I don't care. All you ever did was demand baby gifts, and I never got to see my grandchild anyway. Please don't use me only when it suits you. No. Mom. Jessica's face gradually turns pale, but I have no intention of helping her now. I decided to give her a final, ultimate revenge. Oh, by the way, we're selling this house, so you should find a place to live by the end of the month. Sell? This house? Jessica is in a complete state of shock. Wait a second. You're joking, right? It's not easy finding a place to live. We don't care. We're moving, so goodbye. Wait! Please, forgive me. I promise I won't complain anymore. Please, take me with you. Jessica was screaming and begging, but we ignored her. We took only the essential belongings, and John, his mother, and I moved to our new home. Jessica, left without a place to go, ended up living at her ex-husband's house. His debts are still accumulating, and now Jessica has no choice but to work part-time. If she had behaved decently in our house, none of this would have happened. Truly, she reaped what she sowed. However, there is a part of me that is grateful. Thanks to this, we were able to move to a wheelchair-accessible apartment. John's mother can now move around much more without any help. The security is also well established, so even if Jessica comes to visit in the future, we won't be bothered as we were before. John and his mother still feel guilty, but since we gave Jessica a taste of her own medicine, I'm not too bothered. Just being able to live happily with John and his mother is enough to make me feel blessed. From now on, I want to take care of those who care for me. I sincerely hope that the house we inherited from my father goes to someone wonderful.
I came home earlier than expected from a business trip. And then, from the bathroom of my supposedly empty house, I heard my husband's voice. Why would he be in the bath at such an odd hour? He's supposed to be at work right now. I nervously phoned my husband Nick, and as expected, he yelled back, "I'm at work." If that's the case, whose voice is this that I'm hearing? At that moment, everything clicked. Unforgivable. To betray me, his wife? There's no way I can stay quiet about something like this. I finally decided to get my revenge on my husband. My name is Kathy. I'm 30 years old. After graduating from university, I got a job at a certain food company, and I'm now in my 8th year. Recently, I've been given the role of team leader for a new project, and I'm living fulfilling days. I married Nick 2 years ago. It started at a mixer, but I've been able to lead a happy married life with him, who is more like a friend. While I have to commute to my office and regularly go on business trips, he works from home half the week. The policy at his company changed, and it's been like this since a year ago. Initially, Nick was a bit confused by the sudden change in his work style, but now he's glad to be able to relax and work at home. When I'm on a business trip or such, he takes care of all the housework, which is very helpful. Then, one day, after I came home from work and was changing in my room, I noticed something. Huh? Was there this little left? I remove my makeup in my room when I change, but I felt that my liquid makeup remover in the container looked slightly less than I remembered. Being frugal by nature, I only use the bare minimum of everything, not just makeup remover. Even for toner and emulsion, I only use a little bit, just what I need. Because of this, I'm more sensitive to the amount of makeup remover than others. Why? When I came back yesterday, it hadn't been this much less. Did Nick accidentally spill it by any chance? Unable to shake off the sense of discomfort, I called out to Nick, who was preparing dinner. "Hey Nick, did you go into my room today?" He stopped his work and turned around saying, "Huh?" With a puzzled expression on my husband's face, I briefly explained the situation. "My makeup remover seems to be running low. Do you know anything about this?"
"No, I have no idea."
"I see. I thought maybe you might have accidentally spilled it while cleaning my room."
"I've been working from home all day today. Maybe it's all in your head, Kathy."
You think so? But I'm certain it's less than before."
"Kathy, you're probably just tired. Look, dinner's ready. Why don't you sit down and wait?"
"All right, thanks, Nick." Being told it was all in my head by my husband, I decided to convince myself so that day. Still, a faint sense of unease swirled in my mind. 2 weeks later, I had been on a business trip and was returning home after a long while. My husband Nick greeted me with a smile and prepared dinner as usual. That day, I was so tired that I went straight to eat and take a bath without even removing my makeup. Standing in front of the bathroom sink to do my skincare after the bath, I noticed something. What? What is this? My usual toner, moisturizer, and even my beauty cream were noticeably diminished. These were high-end skincare products that I had treated myself to just a month ago. Being frugal by nature, I was using them sparingly and should have had plenty left. This time, it was clear that they had definitely been used. Someone must have used it. With that thought in my mind, I dashed towards Nick. "Nick, did you use my toner?"
Why would I use your stuff, Kathy?"
"But it's strange. No matter how I look at it, a lot has gone."
"Oh, not this again. Just like last time, isn't it just your imagination, Kathy?"
"No, it's different this time. If it's not you, Nick, then someone has been sneaking into our house." At my words, Nick burst out laughing and retorted,
"So you're saying someone came to steal your toner? No way, Kathy. I've been working from home these past 2 days when you weren't around."
But...
Besides, if it was a burglar, they would take what they wanted, right? Who's ever heard of a burglar who uses a little bit of something and then leaves without taking anything? That's an extremely conscientious thief."
Well, I suppose so.
"See, you're imagining things, Kathy. If you're that worried, shall I increase my days working from home?"
Nick's company allows flexible work arrangements, including working from home, as long as he comes to the office on certain required days. Until recently, half of his week was remote, and the other half was in the office, but considering the security situation, it would be reassuring to have Nick around more. I asked Nick to work from home as much as possible and decided to keep an eye on the situation. 1 week later, since then, the contents of my skincare products didn't decrease anymore, and I was able to return to my normal routine. I had started to think that perhaps it was all in my head, but then something happened. On this particular day, I was off work and went shopping by myself. After finishing my makeup in my room, I opened my jewelry box to get something to wear and gasped. "What? What is this? Why are so many things missing?" Much to my shock, several of my favorite earrings and rings were missing. Even the gold necklace I had inherited from my grandmother was gone. There were numerous valuable accessories I had bought as treats for my hard work. There were also gifts from friends and mementos I had received from Nick. I had carefully kept the necklace from my grandmother, waiting for the perfect occasion to wear it. What's more, only the expensive brand items were gone. The inexpensive items I bought at novelty shops were neatly left in the box. There's no doubt, someone definitely stole them. The person who stole my toner must have done this too. Convinced there had been an intruder, I showed Nick the contents of my jewelry box and declared loudly, "Nick, look at this. See, it wasn't all in my head."
What's gotten into you? Is there something wrong with what's in the box?
Until just the other day, there were rings and earrings in here. Now, all the brand items are missing. It's strange for so many valuable things to just disappear.
Are you sure it's not just your imagination?
I told you, it's not my imagination. Only the brand items were taken. Isn't that strange?
Maybe you just forgot you threw them out yourself.
No way! Why would I throw out my own jewelry? Even the necklace that was my grandmother's heirloom is gone. It's not something that can just be explained away as all in my head, right? I pulled out my smartphone and dialed 911. Then my husband, Nick, swiftly took the phone away from me and hung up. Nick, what are you doing?
That's my line. Why on earth would you call the police?
Because someone stole my personal stuff. There might be fingerprints left behind. It makes sense to report it, doesn't it?
That's just an overreaction. Plus, I was at home the whole time. If someone had come in, I would have noticed, right?
So how do you explain this? No matter how I look at it, it's weird.
First off, calm down. I'll help you look around the house, okay?
Nick attempted to soothe me by gently rubbing my back, but it was nothing more than a weak consolation to me. I took photos of every corner of the room so that I noticed if anything has changed. With this evidence, no one could dismiss it as just my imagination. If we can't find anything after some time, I'll definitely contact the police then. I decided that in my heart and acted calm and normal in front of my husband. A few weeks later, I had another business trip. Originally scheduled for a week, I finished work early and decided to come home a day earlier than planned. Nick had been in charge of all the housework while I was away, so I thought I'd make dinner for him that evening. With that in mind, I bought a ton of groceries and headed home. The moment I walked into the entrance, I instinctively felt something was off. And then I noticed an unfamiliar pair of women's shoes at the entrance. Nick should be home, so why are there women's shoes? Could it be the thief is a woman? In a panic, I found myself dialing Nick's number. He answered after a few rings, to which I hurriedly said, "Hello?" To that, he grumpily retorted,
"Don't call me out of the blue. I'm in the middle of work, you know."
"I'm sorry, Nick. Where are you right now?"
"I'm obviously at work. Consider the time, will ya?"
"I thought you were working from home today. Why aren't you at home? I'm in a bind here."
"Sorry, but I'm busy right now. Bye."
"Wait, Nick." He abruptly ended the call. I couldn't face a burglar on my own. I had to call him back and ask him to come home early. Just as I thought this, I heard voices coming from the direction of the bathroom. Quietly, I tiptoed closer to the bathroom. When I silently entered the changing area, I could see two silhouettes reflected on the shower curtain. From inside the bathroom, I heard someone talking to my husband. "Was that your wife on the phone just now?"
Yeah. Damn, she called while I was having fun. She should just quietly do her job, haha.
"Nick, you're really a piece of work, you know. Your wife is working hard and here you are, bringing me into your house."
What's so bad about that? She's a workaholic. It's fine, haha.
That's terrible. Isn't your wife earning more than you do? You shouldn't say such things.
Well, I admit I'm living in this nice house thanks to her, haha. I do all the housework, so bringing a girl home once in a while should be okay, right? Haha.
Haha, Nick, you're the best. My husband and his mistress's laughter, mocking me, echoed in the bathroom. At that moment, everything clicked. The dwindling makeup remover and skincare products, the missing pieces of my jewelry, they were all used and stolen by his mistress. My husband, whom I had trusted and sought help from, was the real culprit all along. Unaware of all this, I had been consulting with him. He had resisted calling the police and tried to pass everything off as my imagination, all to keep his affair from being discovered. At that moment, I felt something inside me break down. This is unforgivable. It is absolutely not okay. I stepped outside and took out my cell phone again. Catching my breath, I dialed my parents and my brother. "Hey, it's me. I know it's sudden, but could you come over right now?" I made the same call to my husband's parents and had them gather at our house. A few dozen minutes later, when everyone had gathered, I explained the situation. Right now, my husband and his mistress are in my bathroom.
What did you just say? Is that true, Kathy?
With his face reddened in anger, my father asked. Yes, it's true. I heard their conversation with my own ears. Upon hearing this, everyone's faces turned pale.
That scumbag!
Father, please, hold back for now. I rushed to stop my father, who looked ready to storm in any moment.
How dare he tramples on my precious daughter's feelings? I can't leave until I punched a guy who cheats while his wife is away.
Father, I understand you are angry too, but right now I need your cooperation for my revenge.
Revenge? Do you have a plan?
I was originally supposed to come home tomorrow, so I think this mistress will probably stay late. I want to sneak into the house without them noticing, have everyone see their affair, and ask you all to be my witnesses.
Got it. If it'll make you feel better, Kathy, I'll cooperate.
Thank you, Dad. And so we quietly and carefully snuck into the house. Nick and his mistress seemed to have already gotten out of the bath, and now I could hear their voices coming from the bedroom. Listening to their conversation, it seems like they were about to get intimate. We each activated the cameras on our smartphones, waiting for the right moment. A few minutes later, suppressing my rising disgust, I flung the bedroom door open with all my might. Enough is enough, you two. As expected, they were lounging happily on the bed. We captured the scene with our phones, taking photos and recording videos all at once.
Hey, what the hell is this?
Stop it! Don't record this! Nick and his mistress cried desperately and it echoed throughout the room. Ignoring them, we continued to record. My father and father-in-law forcefully yanked the blanket off the two as they tried to hide under it. Nick's mistress's clothes, which she had stretched out for from the bed, were thrown into the hallway by my mother-in-law. They seemed to have resigned themselves to the situation, sitting in their underwear a few minutes later. Nick lowered his head towards me.
I'm sorry, Kathy. It was just a moment of weakness.
A moment of weakness? So that makes cheating okay?
Well, that's,
It was that woman who used my stuff and stole, right? You knew all along, yet you dared to say,
Isn't it all in your head? I said I'm sorry. I thought it would be okay if I just used a little.
What? I could have forgiven you if it was just my toner, but my jewelry? Surely she's the one who stole it, right? As I glared at the lover, the woman uncomfortably looked down. I sighed, turning my attention back to my husband. Do you have any idea how much pain you've caused me? It's not just about the cheating. I was betrayed by the very person I trusted and confided in. It was just a moment of weakness is not an acceptable excuse. Enough of your nonsense.
No, you got it wrong. It was just a fling with her. The one I love is you, Kathy.
Shut up. I can't trust anything you say anymore. I heard you say things about me in the bathroom. I'll never forgive you two. I will sue you for every penny you stole from me. I hope you two rot in hell. The aftermath was like a living nightmare. My husband crying and begging for forgiveness, and his mistress lying on the floor crying nonstop. My father, father-in-law, and brother took turns beating him up and demanding he sign the divorce papers. My mother and mother-in-law prepared an impromptu promissory note to ensure his mistress paid back for what she stole from me, forcing her to sign it. Once all the paper was signed, my husband and his mistress were thrown out of the house. Their clothes and belongings were tossed out into the yard, and the woman quickly fled the scene. My husband, who kept screaming, "Forgive me," had also given up and disappeared in half an hour. After that, I divorced my husband. My father-in-law introduced me to a lawyer he knew, and I demanded full compensation for my ex-husband and his mistress. I demanded the woman to return the jewelry she stole, and if that was not possible, I demanded her to pay a lump sum as compensation. My ex-husband was exposed for repeatedly cheating while claiming to be working remotely, and was subsequently fired from his company. He seemed to have to pay back a portion of his salary he received while working from home. The woman also quickly abandoned him, and he fell in a breakdown not only in his professional life, but also in his personal relationships. But I don't feel any sympathy for them. It's all their own fault. Meanwhile, I canceled the lease on the apartment I used to live in with my ex-husband, and now I'm living alone in a condominium near my workplace. I have some money left over from the divorce settlement, and I plan to use it to go on a trip with my parents soon. I can't think about remarrying right now. I need a break from marriage for a while. But if the opportunity arises in the future, I would like to be with someone honest and sincere. Someone who doesn't lie. In the meantime, I will try to develop a good eye for men.
My name is Jean. I live with my husband, Alex. Alex generally doesn't do household chores and treats me as if I'm his maid. I work part-time, though. Hey, could you possibly cook dinner today? When I ask Alex, "Huh? Why?" he looks at me as if he doesn't understand at all. Looks like we're short-staffed today and I might have to work overtime. Can you cook dinner for a change? What are you whining about? I'm the one who brings home the bacon, right? It's only natural that you do all the housework. Alex responds in a domineering manner as if to say he's superior, and so I end up not being able to say anything. Then, one day, "Hey there, I'm home," a man suddenly entered, calling out energetically. It was my brother-in-law, Mike. "What? Mike? What? Why are you here? What are you talking about? This is my house." Our conversation was just not matching up. He seemed to mistakenly believe that this was his parents' house. "Oh, if it's not my folks' place, you should have just told me that." I had told him that from the start. "Well, since you're here, make yourself at home." My husband, Alex, made a surprising statement. Wait a minute. Why are you accepting this so easily?" Although I protested, my husband didn't listen, and so our life with Mike began. But this brother-in-law, he's an incredibly rude man. "Hey, Jean, I'm helping myself to the beer in the fridge." "What?" I was shocked. He had just helped himself to the fridge, as if it were his own home. When do you plan on leaving? It's already been 3 days. "What? It's only been 3 days? Let me stay a bit longer." Does he not understand that we don't want him here? Mike responded with a nonchalant smile. "But that beer is Alex's, so..." "Huh? Then why don't you buy some more?" "That's not the point." I wanted to say that, but it seemed like whatever I would say would just be brushed off, so I had no choice but to stay silent. "Hey, when is your brother planning to leave?" Since he didn't seem to have any intention of leaving, I decided to ask Alex. Then, "Huh? What are you talking about? My brother isn't leaving anytime soon." "What?" It seems that Mike had a falling out with his parents and didn't want to return home. He had mistakenly thought that this was his parents' house, but perhaps he pretended to mistake it on purpose. Anyway, where's my beer? "Well, it's gone. Mike drank it." "What? What's with that? Go buy some more right now." Alex became irrationally angry, and I had no choice but to go buy beer. Just as I was about to leave the house, "Oh, Jean, if you're going shopping, get some snacks too." "Why don't you buy it yourself?" "Nah, it's just a hassle. As a housewife, you should buy it." Does he think I'm his servant or something? He seems to look down on me with an utterly lax attitude. Please, enough is enough. Such rude behavior. I just can't ignore it." "Huh? What, are you standing up to me?" Mike, my brother-in-law, suddenly gave off a menacing aura as soon as I stood up to him. "Look, I'm not saying I want to stay here forever. You understand that I'm just asking to crash here for a bit, right? But shut up, no buts. Just when I felt like I was losing to Mike's pressure. Hey, what's going on? Why are you arguing? Well, because Mike refuses to leave our home. So what? It's fine if you don't leave, bro. What? Does Alex actually not mind having Mike around? But he's even drinking your beers, you know. Well, you can just buy some more, can't you? Alex said with a matter-of-fact expression. Mike chimed in with, Right. Fine, I'll do as you wish. I've had enough. Exhausted from the argument, I decided to just silently go buy the beer. This attitude of mine seemed to have worsened things as Mike's behavior became more and more obnoxious. Hey, beer. That was Mike's voice. Do you really think you'll get a beer talking to me like that? Huh? What? Are you defying me? Before I knew it, a month had passed since Mike came to our house. Mike had become as dictatorial towards me as a bad husband. Well, isn't there a certain manner in which you're supposed to ask favors from others? Huh? What? Are you, a mere housewife, trying to tell me how to behave? He went so far as to belittle me as a mere housewife. It really seems that Mike looks down on me completely. Hey, Jean, I'm off to play golf, so you two have fun. I hear Alex's voice from the entrance. Wait a minute. Alone with Mike? Yeah, so what? Is there a problem? There's a big problem. Given Mike's recent behavior, it's obvious he's going to pull something. At least go play golf with Mike. I don't want to be alone with him. He doesn't do golf. Ignoring my plea, Alex went off to play golf. That's kind of hurtful. So you don't want to be with me that much? Mike approaches, smirking. But when are you going to leave this house? It's like you're treating me as a servant. Not like. You are my servant. He finally said it. I'm single after all. I've always wanted a servant like this. He seems to genuinely believe that a housewife is a servant. What a terrible man. I'm not a servant. I'm a proper housewife. What's the difference? Anyway, bring me some snacks. Hurry up. Mike orders while relaxing in the living room. Truly outraged, I ignored him. Mike threw an ashtray. Fortunately, it didn't hit me, but it did shatter the glass on the shelf. Hey, who do you think is in charge here? You're getting a bit too cheeky, aren't you? I felt in danger with his anger unresolved. Reluctantly, I brought him snacks, along with a new beer. Perfect. This is the life I've always wanted. He was completely in the mood of a master of the house. I was afraid that if I did something to offend him, he would throw the ashtray again. All I could do was wait for Alex to come home in fear. I'm home. After several hours, Alex finally returned. Oh, Alex, I was so scared. Normally he's a bit of a domineering husband, but I thought he would be reliable in times like this. However, whoa, what happened to this room? It's a mess. Alex prioritized commenting on the state of the room over listening to me. Well, Mike, he threw an ashtray and I was scared. I tried to explain what I had gone through, but... Huh? What's that? The ashtray didn't hit you, did it? Then it's no big deal, right? I couldn't believe it. Would any normal person say that when their wife might have been seriously hurt? Hey, welcome home. Your wife trashed the room. What? Incredibly, Mike was blaming me for the mess in the room. What? It was you. Why are you blaming my brother? No, it's not like that. I desperately insisted I wasn't to blame. But Alex, maybe because he was drunk, wouldn't listen to me at all. In the end, I was scolded to take care of things and to take care of Mike. Drunk Alex was very troublesome and kept repeating the same things. If I didn't at least pretend to listen, he would get grumpy and start causing a ruckus. So no matter how tired I was, I had no choice but to listen to Alex's lectures. Phew, I'm tired. About 2 hours after Alex came home, finally Alex's lectures were over. But I was completely worn out. Even so, Alex mercilessly asked me, So, what's for dinner? He said, No, didn't you eat out? Why would I eat out? You mean you haven't prepared anything? I had just been scolded for 2 hours. How could he possibly think I had cooked? "Ugh, you're so useless. You're really a failure as a housewife." And he even negated my worth as a person. What on earth had I done to deserve this? "You're getting scolded. This is hilarious." Mike was just snickering from the sidelines. Maybe these brothers just love tormenting people. In the end, no matter how tired I was, I cooked for Alex and Mike. They even complained that the food was bad, so there was no salvation for me. Finally, reaching my limit, I decided to address Alex again. "Hey, when is Mike going to go home? He's not going to stay here forever, is he?" "Not that again." He clearly looked annoyed. Maybe I chose the wrong time to bring it up. "What's with you? Don't you care about my brother?" To be honest, I didn't care. After all, he just showed up at our house and started tormenting me. Just living with such a person was driving me to the brink. "You know I've been having a rough time, don't you? How can you just ignore that?" I couldn't help but ask Alex that. "Look, everyone has stress, you know." Just as he opened his mouth, Alex said something outrageous. "Mike is particularly stressed, so he has to use you as a punching bag." I couldn't understand what he was saying at all. Punching bag? Me? Why? When I asked Alex this, he said, "Because clearly in this house, you're the best fit to be a punching bag. You should be honored. You get to be Mike's punching bag." Despite the fact that I didn't want that at all, he spoke as if I did. I shouted, "I don't want that," at Alex, but he just said without hesitation, "It's not about what you want or don't want. You're a punching bag. Punching bags don't have will, do they?" Alex said it with such conviction. It was clear he meant it. And when I thought about it, Alex had been abusing me for a while now, yelling at me for no reason, even physically hurting me at times. You're cruel," I muttered, tears welling up in my eyes. But even seeing me cry, Alex didn't seem to feel anything. "Oh, what a hassle. Women always think crying will solve everything. Cry all you want. I'm not going to do anything. Now, go buy me a beer." Again with the beer. He doesn't care about my feelings at all. "Enough is enough. I can't take it anymore," I shouted, surprising even myself. Alex looked surprised, but he continued to berate me. "Why are you even mad? You have a problem with me and my brother? If you don't like it here, why don't you leave? This is my house, so you're the one who should leave." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Leave? Me? And his brother is not the problem? Even when I asked for clarification, all Alex would say is, "Yes, you should leave." That's crazy. Why should Mike get to stay when he's the one who came later? He's my brother, right? And you're just a stranger who isn't blood related to me. A stranger who isn't blood related. I never thought I would be treated horribly like this by my husband, whom I married out of love. Something inside of me shuddered at his words. What? Are you shocked? If you hate it so much, just leave. You can divorce me too." Alex continued to taunt me as I stood there in disbelief. Was he really considering divorce? It seems that Mike is more important to him than I am. That night, we both decided to go to bed without saying anything else. But I couldn't sleep. The cruel words Alex had said playing over and over in my mind. Leave, divorce. Was I the only one who thought we were in love? I suddenly felt very sad. Perhaps my feelings were unreciprocated. After a good cry that soaked my pillow, I made a decision and went to sleep. A few days passed after that incident. Alex called me. "Hey, where are you? Where did you go early in the morning?" "You just noticed? It's been a few days since I left." "I didn't care if you were gone. I was eating instant noodles, but I've run out. Make me some food." I thought he could just keep eating instant noodles for the rest of his life. He sounded quite flustered, raising his voice. Having no choice, I calmly replied, "Well, I've started living alone." "What? You're living alone?" He seemed genuinely surprised. "There was a studio apartment available right away. I signed the lease on the spot. I'll have the movers send my stuff later." "What the hell are you thinking? Make dinner for me and Mike." "Why should I? You were the one who told me to leave." "No, that was, Alex tried to speak firmly, but his voice gradually faltered. Of course it would. His own words were contradicting each other. "Anyway, come back home." This is a husband's order." Even so, Alex tried hard to maintain his strong tone and yelled at me. However, strangely enough, I wasn't scared of Alex anymore. Why do I have to come back? There's nothing but unpleasant things for me if I return. When I said that, Alex replied, "Whether it's unpleasant or not doesn't matter. You're a servant in this house." Again with the servant comment. I wonder if those brothers really think I have no human rights. I was too flabbergasted to say anything, so I decided to tell him about my decision. "Alex, I've decided to do as you said." "What? What are you talking about?" "I'm getting a divorce." "What? A divorce?" He seemed very surprised. It's strange. Why is he so shocked when he was the one who brought up the topic of divorce? "Don't be ridiculous. There's no way I'm getting a divorce. I refuse." He seems unwilling to lose a convenient housekeeper, but his obnoxious behavior won't shake my resolve. "It's you and your brother's fault. It's because you've oppressed me this whole time. I've been holding back all this time." Perhaps realizing I was serious, Alex's voice began to tremble. "Hey, you're joking, right? Are you seriously going to get a divorce? I'll go to your parents and convince them." "What good would that do? I already talked to them. They won't listen to you." "What?" He seemed quite panicked. He should have just kicked out his brother and changed his ways. "Come on, please reconsider. My brother says he's sorry." I thought to myself, these are the kinds of people who only say things when they're in a pinch. There's no way I could trust their words of regret. "I'm sorry, but I can't trust a word you say. I will never forget what you've done, nor do I intend to forgive it." Hearing this, Alex became even more flustered. "Wait, please, I'm begging you." He didn't kick his brother out when I pleaded with him. The more we talked, the more pathetic Alex seemed. "Goodbye. We have nothing more to discuss." Wait, let's talk this out. Please, don't go through with the divorce." I proceeded with the divorce process through my lawyer, and it was successfully finalized. Alex and his brother ended up having a big fight over who would do the housework. Two grown men fighting full out. They both ended up in the hospital. After all they've done to me, they got what they deserved. Now, even though I'm single, my life is much easier than when I was with Alex. I wish I had left him sooner.
It's your fault that they're calling me stinky at school. Why are you even a janitor? You stink. Stay away from me. My son started verbally abusing me around the time he was about to enter middle school next year. I guess he was probably being teased at school because I worked as a janitor. My name is Kathy Anderson. I was 34 at the time, and my son was 12. My husband passed away due to an illness shortly after our son started elementary school. To raise my son, I started working at a cleaning company. My son was a kind kid who often helped me, but in elementary school, he started to change gradually as he was ridiculed for my job. When he entered middle school, he started hanging out with kids who were not well liked, even getting caught playing outside at night. I was frequently called to the school due to his misconduct. Raising a child as a single mother was tougher than I had thought, but by his third year in middle school, his bad behavior stopped abruptly and he began to focus on studying. It seemed he was scared straight after witnessing his friends get caught by the police for shoplifting. "I don't want to live a bottom-of-the-barrel life like you. I'm going to study, graduate from a good university, and lead an elite life by getting a job at a reputable company," he began to say. While I had mixed feelings about his words, I was relieved that he had finally started to show some motivation. I thought the priority was to let him focus on his studies. It was indeed joyous to see him entering a good high school and studying hard. And so my son was admitted to the high school he had hoped for. I was truly delighted. The high school my son attended was private, and both the admission fee and tuition were far from cheap, but I managed to cover them by increasing my shifts and tightening my budget.
"Hey, what's with this pathetic meal? I need to eat more nutritious things, Give me better meat."
"I'm sorry, I'm doing my best, but paying the tuition is all I can manage."
"Then work harder. You're just feeding me this cheap food. Are you even my parent?" It's a parent's duty to support their child.
His verbal abuse got worse after he entered high school. Perhaps because many of his classmates came from wealthy families, he might have felt miserable about his own circumstances. To spare my son any embarrassment, I cut back on my own spending, buying nothing for myself and using everything I had for him. Although he's abusive now, I believe he will understand when he grows up. Remembering how kind he was in elementary school, I spurred myself on.
I'm going to study abroad when I go to college.
Huh?
I want to go for about a year, so I'll need around $30,000 to $40,000.
That much?
You're not going to say you can't afford it, right? It's a parent's duty to fulfill their child's wishes. Don't use poverty as an excuse.
I understand. However, if he goes to university, there will be more tuition fees. How could I possibly come up with the money for studying abroad? Even now, my life is already on a tightrope. So I asked the cleaning company to switch me to an early morning shift, and then started working at a 24-hour supermarket late at night. I worked at the cleaning company from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., went home to prepare dinner for my son and do household chores, and then worked at the supermarket from 5 p.m. to midnight. On the days when the cleaning company was closed, I filled in part-time at the supermarket, working without a day off. In doing so, my son was able to enroll in a well-known private university he had wished for. Since I only graduated high school, I was happy that my son could go to university. In his second year, he went abroad to study. The university fees were substantial, so I could not cover all the study abroad expenses from savings and had to take out a loan. Life abroad seemed to cost a lot, and I often got requests for money from my son. But I thought it was pitiful to let him struggle in a foreign country, so I kept sending him money even though it meant accumulating debt. After a year, he successfully completed his study abroad and returned home, although it meant delaying his college graduation by a year. My son came back and immediately started asking for spending money again. Hey Derek, you're a college student now. Couldn't you get a part-time job?
Huh? You think it's okay for your kid to work and have fun? Unbelievable.
I don't mean it like that, but couldn't you try to earn your own spending money?
I have my studies. That's a student's job. If I took on a part-time job, I wouldn't be able to properly job hunt. Do you want to ruin your kid's future as a parent? This is why I can't stand people with a low level of education.
I'm sorry. My son was the same as ever, but I was relieved to be able to get him through college safely. He got a job at a pretty well-known company, and it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Once he started working, he finally stopped asking for spending money, which made life much easier. But the debts from his college and study abroad were still there, so I kept working day and night. After 4 years of him working, I was almost done paying off the debt. My son never contributed any money to the house, but I managed. I tried talking to him about contributing a little if he's going to live here, but he said,
"You expect your child to give you money? Being a working adult means having social obligations, and it costs money. You, a cleaner, and I, who work at a large company, are not the same."
So I never mentioned it again. It's tiring to argue like this every time I say something. Maybe by this time I was used to living like this and didn't find working day and night too hard. But unknowingly, maybe my body was screaming for a break. I was probably pretending not to notice. One day, while I was cleaning a certain building, I saw my son coming out of the elevator. I inadvertently called out to him, "Derek!" When he saw me, my son made a very annoyed face.
"Huh? Who are you?"
"Excuse me?"
"I don't know any dirty old woman like you. Don't talk to me so casually. It's annoying."
"Derek!" It was a huge shock to be yelled at by my son like that. My son didn't even look at me properly and quickly left the scene. That night, after finishing my late night shift and returning home, my son, who should have been sleeping, was up drinking beer in the kitchen. As soon as he saw me, he shouted at me like he had been waiting for me.
Hey, old woman, what are you thinking?
What are you talking about?
Why did you call out to me in a place like that? That's a crucial business partner for my company.
Is that so? I've been cleaning that building for a long time. What a coincidence.
Listen, even if you see me, don't call out to me. It's shameful if people find out my mom is a janitor. Don't embarrass me.
Embarrassing? I've been raising you like this.
What? Do you think you can sell me a favor with that?
I don't mean it like that.
Anyway, if you see me outside, we're strangers. Don't casually talk to me. It's a shame for me if people know someone like you is my parent.
It was quite a shock. I had been working day and night like a workhorse for the sake of my son, never expecting him to say something like this. I had been hoping that one day he would change, but now it felt like that day would never come. As I worked with these thoughts in my mind, I slowly started to feel faint. When I came to, I was lying in a hospital bed. The doctor told me it was due to overworking.
You seem to have accumulated a great deal of fatigue. You've been pushing yourself too hard, haven't you?
Did I pass out?
Your colleagues were worried. They said you always work too hard, Mrs.
I see. I ended up staying in the hospital for about a month for recovery. Of course the hospital staff contacted my son, but not once did he visit me during that time. But my colleagues took turns visiting me in the hospital, which was very encouraging. The person who rushed to see me first when he heard I collapsed was Mr. John Harrison. He is a kind person who always praises my work and is considerate of me. He had lost his wife early and raised his daughter as a single father. We had similar circumstances and we started talking a lot.
You've done really well until now. I think it's time for you to take it easy.
When Mr. John said that, I couldn't help but shed tears. It felt like all the feelings of being unrecognized and misunderstood that I had been holding inside were melting away. I realized that I had been stuck in the mindset that I have to work hard all this time. A month later, when I was discharged from the hospital, my usual daily life was waiting for me. But I had stopped expecting anything from my son, so I felt a bit lighter. Although I didn't speak to my son much, one day he told me he was getting married. The partner was the daughter of a high-ranking official at the company he was dealing with. That's wonderful.
Well, it's natural for a man like me. After all, I graduated from a top university, studied abroad, and am working for a top company.
I wanted to say, who do you think paid for all that, but decided not to say anything unnecessary. Saying anything wouldn't change my son. There is nothing to gain from an unproductive argument.
But you don't have to come to the wedding.
Huh?
It would be embarrassing to have a parent like you come, so I decided to rent a parent.
What do you mean by rent a parent?
See, it's an era where you can even rent a family. If I can have someone who looks much richer than you attend as my mother, it would make me look good.
You're having someone else attend as your mother?
That's far better than you coming.
So that's what you thought.
Of course. You are not suitable for a top-class man like me. Don't come to the wedding as a poor, low-class person who scrapes by.
Okay, then I don't care about you anymore.
I'm going to move out of this house once I get married, and I'll never come back. I'm cutting ties with you.
Okay, if that's what you want, I don't mind.
Well, with that settled, I'll finally be free of having to see your poor face ever again.
With that, my son announced his plan to move to his new place a week before his wedding and left. I said nothing and merely watched as he walked away. I thought at last everything was over. There was still one concern I had, but I didn't share it with my son. Little did I know how it would unfold. On the wedding day, my son called me incessantly, like a madman. Being quite busy, I initially decided not to answer, but his relentless calling left me with no choice.
What the hell are you doing? Pick up the phone straight away. Not like you have any serious business anyway.
I'm actually quite busy, so what's up? Isn't today your wedding day?
Yeah, that's why I'm calling you. Get over here right now.
Huh? What are you talking about?
I'm inviting you to my wedding. Be grateful and come now.
You don't want to see a poor person like me again, do you? Wouldn't you be embarrassed if I attended? You got a stand-in, didn't you?
Quit the chatter and just come. You'll get to see your son in his glory.
As I said, I'm busy. I don't have time to attend such a thing.
Such a thing?
Yes, so goodbye. As I was about to hang up, my son stopped me in a panic. His voice desperate.
You wouldn't happen to know a guy named John, would you? The CEO of the company where my bride's father works?
Why so?
He approached me all smiles, saying he owed you a lot.
Oh, you mean John Harrison?
Yes, him. He's the guest of honor today. He said, I'm overjoyed that my precious employee's daughter is marrying Kathy's son.
Oh, I'm quite familiar with John.
Really? How do you know the CEO of such a big company?
I told you before, didn't I? I work as a cleaner in John's company.
That building?
John is the CEO of the building where I met my son at work. He's a wonderful boss who cares for each and every one of his employees and is even friendly to us cleaners. We got talking when I once returned something he had left behind at the washstand while I was cleaning the toilet.
How come you're friendly with the CEO of a big company while you're just a janitor?
We found out that we're both single parents and found a lot in common.
And then he asked why you weren't there. He said, you wouldn't neglect to invite your mother, would you?
Why not introduce him to the stand-in mom?
He knows what you look like. It'll give us away.
Oh, really?
It's not, oh, really? Just get over here now.
I told you I'm not going. Ever since he found out that I raised my son alone, he's been quite caring and a good listener. When my son told me the name of his fiance's father's company, I was truly surprised. I never dreamed that my son would marry the daughter of an executive working for John's company. I had already told John about this, and also that my son had rejected the idea of me coming to the wedding. John then told me he had a good idea and asked me not to tell my son about our acquaintance until the wedding day.
You gotta come or I'll look bad. You're going around telling folks how you struggle to raise me all by yourself. And then everyone's like, you gotta thank your mom or something.
And what about you, Derek? Thanking me?
Are you nuts? Parents are supposed to raise their kids. Why should I have to be grateful for that? But this is making me look like a chump. It's your job as a parent to fix this. Get over here and brag about how I am such a good son to everyone.
Hearing that makes me want to go even less.
What? Are you even a parent?
What goes around comes around. You're not a child anymore. Take responsibility for yourself. Parents aren't all powerful, and I'm not your parent anymore. With that, I hung up the phone. John was asked to give a speech as the guest of honor at the wedding. Later, he said he gave a great speech with a smile on his face. Someone had recorded the speech, and John showed it to me.
Ladies and gentlemen, his mother has tirelessly raised her son, Derek, single-handedly, day and night. She even took out loans to pay for his college and study abroad, while Derek never worked a part-time job and kept demanding money from her. Now a fine working adult, he never contributes a dime at home and keeps spouting nastiness. On this fine day, he even told her not to come to his wedding because she would embarrass him. Let's give a big round of applause for our outstanding groom.
There was John speaking loudly. My son on stage was pale as a ghost. The bride next to him turned beet red and was visibly shaking. She then took a wine bottle and drenched my son's head. "You ungrateful wretch!" The bride's scream was loud and clear. She held the sides of her dress and stormed out. There was a chorus of boos from the guests, and my son was not only drenched in wine, but was also a mess with tears and snot all over his face. His white tuxedo was soaked and stained red. Seeing my son like that didn't make me feel anything. It felt like I was watching a farce that had nothing to do with me. Naturally, the wedding was called off. There were many guests from the company and clients invited to the wedding, so the news of what happened at the ceremony spread like wildfire. I heard he began to receive cold stares both inside and outside the office. It seems he eventually quit his job due to the hostile environment, but the details of the wedding went viral on social media, and he couldn't find another because of it. After his bride left, he couldn't afford to pay the rent for their new home, and I heard he was evicted. About a month later, I received a call from a public phone.
Mom, where are you right now?
Who is this? I don't recall having a son who would call me Mom.
It's me, Derek.
Oh, I do recall knowing someone by that name in the past.
What are you talking about? It's my fault. Please help me. I don't have a job, can't pay the wedding expenses. I don't have a place to live. When I came home, you weren't there and someone else was living there.
Oh, I moved from the old house. The day of your wedding day was moving day, remember? That's why I said I was busy.
Where did you move to?
There's no need for me to tell you. You're a stranger now.
I'm living in a park now.
A park? Did you become homeless?
Yes, I'm living off picking up cans.
You, who look down on janitors, are now picking up cans? That's a pity.
Don't you feel sorry for me?
Not at all. We're no longer related. Please never contact me again. Goodbye.
But...
I hung up. After that, he never called again. He might not have money to make calls anymore, but it's not my concern. I have no intention of ever seeing or getting involved with him again. Later on, I got remarried to John. His daughter, who had already married and moved out, was very happy about our marriage. From now on, just the two of us are planning to live our second lives happily as a couple.
Hospitalization? You're planning to use that as an excuse to slack off on housework even more? Slack off? I didn't mean to. If you keep shirking your chores, divorce is next. Unfazed, my husband casually spoke these words, not worrying about my upcoming hospital stay. Apparently, he thinks he can intimidate me with the threat of divorce. He believes that if he dangles the possibility of a split, I'll become obedient. What an insult. Just because I'm a housewife doesn't mean I'll let myself be pushed around. I'm definitely going to divorce him. Definitely escape from this hell. I'm Sandy Davis, 28 years old. A year ago, I married Kenny, a colleague from work. We were in different departments, but often interacted, and his advances led to a relationship. After dating smoothly, we finally tied the knot. With our marriage, I resigned from the company and became a full-time housewife. That's because Kenny had said this to me before we got married. Hey Sandy, after we get married, could you become a full-time housewife? Huh? But I don't really hate my current job. My mom was always a stay-at-home mom, and I think it's best for women to protect the home. Thanks to her, my dad could focus on work without stress. Is that so? Are you sure? I mean, I'm not particularly skilled at housework or anything. That's okay. All I want is for you to handle the house without overworking yourself. I'll earn our living out there. Okay, I understand. If you say so, Kenny, I'll try being a housewife. So I quit my job and started a new life as a housewife. Managing unfamiliar chores was challenging, but it was my life with Kenny, whom I loved so much. Plus, I lost my parents a few years ago, and my only family now is my husband. I was determined to cherish this life. However, happiness doesn't last forever. One day, 6 months after our marriage, my husband came home from work in an unusually bad mood. Even when tired, he would usually greet me with "I'm home," but not today. He let out a big sigh and plopped down on the sofa. I cautiously approached him. Kenny, welcome home. You seem tired. Are you okay? Dinner's ready. Would you like to eat? Or maybe you want to take a shower first? Hey, Kenny. Can't you see I'm thinking? Stop bothering me. With wide eyes and a glare in my direction, my husband lashed out. I had never seen him this angry before, and I involuntarily flinched. I'm sorry. Despite my immediate apology, he clicked his tongue loudly enough for me to hear it. In an obnoxious tone, he began to take out his bad mood on me. Must be nice just lazing around the house all day. Wait, Kenny, what are you saying all of a sudden? You're supposedly a housewife, but really you're just lounging around while I'm at work. You're really the worst. Hold on. I'm always doing chores around the house. Shut up. You're nothing but a leech. Yet you have the nerve to talk back to me? He suddenly grabbed a handful of my hair and yanked it upwards. I felt an unspeakable fear at his actions. I quickly raised my voice, "Stop it!" But my plea didn't reach him. For the following hour, I was subjected to a barrage of verbal abuse, called an inept wife and a freeloader. I'm reducing our monthly expenses, you know. As he declared, his treatment of me worsened day by day. Initially, he only reduced our spending money by $100. But now, I'm only getting half of what we used to. Our relationship wasn't one between husband and wife anymore. It was more like master and servant. This was only a year into our marriage. You might think it's only been a year, but for me, it was a year of hell. From the day Kenny lost his senses, time seemed to crawl at a painfully slow pace. Every night, I was reprimanded and blamed for every little thing. Even so, the reason I stayed with Kenny as a couple was because I couldn't bring myself to truly dislike him. I kept hoping he would someday return to his old self. One day, something happened. I was cleaning around the house when my cell phone rang. Checking the screen, I saw a name that I hadn't seen in a while. Laurie, a former coworker's. Excited by the unexpected call, I immediately pressed the answer button. Hello, Laurie. Long time no see.
Sandy, it's been a while. Hey, can you chat right now?
Of course.
I'm sorry for being so blunt, but Sandy, are you fighting with your husband?
Arguing? Why do you ask?
I heard through the grapevine. Recently, Kenny has been talking bad about you at work.
What's this about? According to Laurie, my husband looks as if he is very dominant at home lately. She can't do anything without me. She's so helpless when it comes to housework. She would be divorced if she wasn't with me. Apparently, he had been bad-mouthing me to our former colleagues and junior staff in his department. Because I used to work at the same company, everyone in his workplace knows me. My former coworkers, familiar with me, seem to have subtly defended me, but it seems that even this did not sit well with Kenny, and he was giving the cold shoulder to the juniors and colleagues who defended me. Because of this, the trust he had built up was crumbling, and the atmosphere in his department was supposedly quite bad. Upon hearing this, Laurie felt concerned and decided to reach out to me. I was at a loss for words after hearing this series of events. Not only did I feel guilty, but I also felt extremely embarrassed that my husband was causing trouble for his coworkers. I'm sorry, Laurie. It seems like Kenny has been causing trouble.
It's okay. I'm in a different department, but you need to do something about this sooner. Kenny will be isolated at work.
I know, but he won't even listen to me at home.
I see. But it would be better to discuss this before things get out of hand. For your sake, and for Kenny's too.
Yeah, you're right. Thanks, Laurie. I'll try to talk to him tonight.
Give it a try, and if anything comes up, I'm always here to listen.
After saying thank you and hanging up the phone, I got back to cleaning. I made up my mind to have a serious talk with Kenny once he got home, and so I waited for his return. Several hours later, my husband came home from work as always. He headed straight for the fridge and grabbed a beer. In the past few months, he hadn't even been saying, "I'm home," nor discussing the events of his day. After finishing his meal, he usually starts lecturing me, so before he could take a sip of beer, I brought up the conversation. Hey, Kenny, have things been going well at work recently? Huh? What's with the sudden question? I'm not so incompetent that you need to worry about me. It's not about work, actually. I heard something today. They said you've been talking behind my back at work? Talking behind your back? What are you talking about? Don't play dumb! I rebuked my husband, who tried to play it off. I confronted him, making it clear to my surprised husband. Hey, what do you want to accomplish? Not just at home, but even at work. You've been bad-mouthing me. What's so fun about creating a negative atmosphere in your department? Huh? What are you saying? Do you realize everyone is having a hard time because of you, Kenny? Why can't you see that? If you want to talk bad about me in front of me, then do as you please, but don't cause trouble for your colleagues too. Right after I said that, a sharp sound echoed in the room. I felt a dull pain on my left cheek, slowly spreading. A few seconds later, I realized my husband had slapped me. Why would you do that? Why? It's because you keep back-talking. Back-talking? I was just worried about you, Kenny. Shut up. There's no reason for you to be ordering me around. Get it? You can live because of me. If you understand that, just keep quiet and take care of the house. He spat out the harsh words with a strong tone. I was unable to articulate a response. I had plenty to say, but my body wouldn't cooperate due to the fear. Afterwards, my husband started drinking his beer as if nothing had happened. He started laughing while watching TV and ordered me to bring him snacks. In the end, no matter how much I worried about him, no matter what I say to him, it's all pointless. No matter what, I can't seem to get my husband to understand. Since then, the way he treated me worsened day by day. Not only my heart, but also my body was in shreds. Then one day, on my way to the grocery store, I was suddenly overcome with extreme nausea. My vision warped and I was assaulted by such severe dizziness that I couldn't even stand. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in a hospital bed. The doctor, upon seeing me awake, kindly explained everything to me. I had collapsed on the street. I was suffering from malnutrition and the stress had caused me to develop a stomach ulcer. Miss Davis, right now, both your mind and body are completely exhausted. You're in a severe state of overwork. For now, you should be admitted to the hospital for about a week. Hospitalization? But I'm a stay-at-home wife. And the household chores. What are you saying? If you continue like this, you'll wear yourself out. I understand. But then it was already past 7 p.m. I decided to contact my husband to bring me some change of clothes, so I took out my phone. To my surprise, there were tons of messages that had arrived within the last hour.
Where are you now? Get back home. Now. You're such a money sucker and now you're slacking off from your chores?
He must have returned from work to find me gone and gotten furious that cleaning and laundry weren't done. Gathering my courage, I called him. After a few rings, he picked up.
Where the hell have you been? And what have you been doing?
He shouted as soon as he picked up the phone. I took a deep breath and slowly explained the situation to him. That's why the doctor told me that I need to be hospitalized for about a week, so...
Hospitalized? So you're planning to use that as an excuse to slack off even more?
I'm not slacking off,
You've already slacked off on your chores, so the next thing will be divorce.
What?
You'd be in trouble if we got divorced, right? You don't have any relatives, do you? If I leave you, you'll be all alone for sure, won't you?
Even though his wife had been hospitalized, instead of showing me concern, he used the threat of divorce to order me to come home. At that moment, a fury I had never felt before reached its peak. Enough. I've had enough. I will never be happy if I continue to live with this man. Then it's better to. As I gathered my thoughts, my husband caught up in his own power trip, starting to provoke me over the phone.
Hey, are you listening? You'd be in trouble if we divorced, wouldn't you?
Fine.
What? What did you say?
I said fine. Let's get a divorce.
No. What are you talking about? Do you even understand what divorce means?
Of course I do. But in return, you prepared the divorce papers.
As if you have the guts to divorce me. Just remember this.
In his annoyance, my husband hung up without waiting for a reply. The next phone call came later. The caller was my old boss from the job I used to have. Actually, even after I became a housewife, my old boss had been contacting me on several occasions. You see, I used to enjoy getting certifications, and I had several before I got married. I got some during my student days and some after I started working, and they were all beneficial for my job. Thanks to them, I had a wide range of work responsibilities, and I was trusted by the higher-ups. When I decided to quit my job after getting married, they tried to keep me on many times. This time, having decided to divorce while in hospital, I was also considering returning to work. When I mentioned this to my boss, he immediately agreed to take me back. He even took care of the arrangements for company housing, so it was decided that I would return to work and move into the dormitory next month. I'm ready now. I can get away from my husband at any time. Later, when I returned home from the hospital, I found the completed divorce papers on the desk. I signed them and immediately submitted them to the courthouse. I hurried back home and packed up my essentials. Then, I left the house before my ex-husband returned. A few hours later, while I was taking a breather in a budget hotel, my phone vibrated with a call from Kenny. Reluctantly answering the persistent phone calls, he yelled at me.
Hey, did you get discharged from the hospital today?
Yes, so what? I responded.
What do you mean, so what? You didn't leave the divorce papers, so you went home, did you? Why didn't you wait for me to come back?
You already know the answer. There's no reason to live together in the same house when we're strangers now, is there?
Huh? Strangers? What are you talking about? You threw away the divorce papers, didn't you?
Threw them away?
You got scared when you realized I was serious about the divorce papers and threw them away, right?
It seems like Kenny is convinced that there's no way I could go through with the divorce. As proof, he is convinced that I threw away the divorce papers and speaks as if I have no intention of divorcing at all. Responding to him, who didn't seem to understand the situation, I replied sarcastically, "Listen, you seem to be misunderstanding something, but I never threw away the divorce papers."
Huh? Then where are they?
I've submitted them. To the city hall.
What kind of joke is...
It's not a joke. It's already been accepted, and you and I are now strangers. We'll never have to deal with each other again. At that explanation, he raised his voice.
Don't mess with me.
Whether he couldn't believe what I said or not, he started blaming me again.
You. There's no way you can divorce. You who have no family? No job?
I certainly have no family, but I do have a job now.
Huh? You're a housewife.
That was true until now. I contacted my boss while in the hospital, and they agreed to hire me back.
That's not something you can do so easily.
It's possible. They even told me they want me back.
There's no way.
You probably don't know, but I'm going to resume work and live in the company's dormitory from next month. Then over the phone, Kenny let out a painful voice.
Wait a minute. This must be a joke, right? I wasn't serious about the divorce.
I don't care. I accepted the divorce because it was what you wanted. There's no problem with that, right?
But that's a problem. How am I supposed to live without you?
As soon as he understood it was a divorce, my ex-husband began to cling without learning his lesson. Disgusted by his attitude, I couldn't help but raise my voice. Huh? I don't care about your life. You're an adult. Figure it out on your own. I was your failed wife, right? So you shouldn't have any problems without me.
That's not true. Wait, I apologize. Please forgive me.
Shut up. I don't love you one bit anymore. I will never forget how you treated me like a slave. Don't ever appear in front of me again. Reflect on your actions and live alone for the rest of your life. After hanging up the phone unilaterally, I blocked his number. I made sure we would never have to interact again. That being said, my new job is at his workplace. The news of our divorce spread through the office. Because he badmouthed me at work, he seems to be looked at as getting what he deserves. He started to feel out of place at work and began taking unauthorized absences. As a result, Kenny was fired for misconduct. Thanks to this, all connections with him were completely cut off. He ended up in debt due to the alimony I demanded after the divorce. Losing his job and even incurring debt, I don't know what he's doing or where. The one thing I'm sure of is that he isn't living a wealthy life. His unhappiness is my only consolation after the torment I've suffered. From now on, I will work for myself and live for myself. I will regain the freedom that I lost during our marriage.
My name is Lily. I'd been dating with my husband Michael since we were in high school. We got married right after graduating from college. Michael is intelligent and landed a job at a renowned company after graduating from an Ivy League university. He's tall, handsome, and I've always been proud to call him mine. People would often tell me, "You're so lucky, Lily." But being together for so many years since high school, I began to wonder if love could fade. Michael's behavior had noticeably changed recently. Whenever I tried to strike a conversation, he would be absorbed in his phone, ignoring my words, and he started coming home from work increasingly late. Even on his days off, he would often leave home, claiming he had leftover work. I had a bad feeling about all of these. The confirmation of my suspicions came when I went out for lunch with a friend on one of my off days. That day, as usual, Michael left the house early in the morning, saying he hadn't finished his work and left me alone. I complained about Michael's recent behavior to my friend, and she reassured me saying, "I'm sure Michael is just busy with work." While we were having lunch at a trendy cafe terrace, my friend suddenly exclaimed, "Oh, isn't that Michael over there?" Following my friend's gaze, I saw Michael indeed. He was supposed to be at work, but there he was. He looked like he was waiting for someone, glancing around nervously. This place was nowhere near his workplace. As I watched him with a sense of unease stirring within me, A woman rushed over and hugged Michael without any hesitation. Unaware that they were being observed, the two of them shared a passionate embrace, even going as far as to kiss, with no regard for the people around them. Michael was having an affair. The shock of that revelation was overwhelming, but what gave me an even bigger headache was the fact that I knew the woman he was with. I couldn't immediately respond when my friend asked me, with my face put down on the table, "Are you okay?" My friend, who had attended the same high school, probably had realized who Michael's affair partner was too. The woman who embraced Michael was my younger sister. It's Sophia. Sophia was always a selfish child. She would always snatch my toys, and when I got angry, she would cry and lie, "Lily's bullying me." I never understood why she was so twisted, but Sophia always picked on me in various ways. One of the reasons why I married Michael right after graduating from college was because I didn't want to live with Sophia anymore. I can't believe that Sophia was having an affair with Michael. Feeling shocked and hurt, I was comforted by my friend and made my way back home. My friend had been very worried about me, but I reassured her, saying, "I'm fine. I'm going to divorce Michael anyway." And then we parted ways. Until Michael returned home, I spent my time in our house, curled up on the sofa, without turning on any lights. I couldn't clearly tell if the tumult of emotions inside my chest was sadness, regret, or perhaps anger. Michael came home late at night without even an "I'm home" greeting when he entered. When I stood up abruptly in the darkness, Michael grimaced, saying,
"Whoa, you scared me. Don't do that."
"Michael."
"What now? I'm tired from work. I'm going to take a shower and go to bed."
"I saw you today in the afternoon. You were hugging and kissing Sophia, weren't you?" Telling Michael this with a voice so low I doubted it was my own, Michael looked surprised at first, but soon laughed scornfully at me.
"Haha, the cat's out of the bag, huh? Yes, I've been cheating on you with Sophia. Sophia is way cuter than you, Lily. I just couldn't help myself. I've grown tired of you."
Stunned for a moment at Michael's nonchalant admission, I snapped and threw a cushion from the sofa at him.
"What the hell are you doing?"
Michael roared, and I yelled back at him. "Why are you openly admitting to cheating? You could at least lie about it. And why, out of all people, is it Sophia?" Seeing Michael's attitude, showing no intention of hiding his infidelity, I felt utterly wretched. When I started sobbing and yelling, Michael grimaced in annoyance and said,
"You're so annoying. It's too late now. I've been seeing Sophia since we first entered college. Since you never noticed, Sophia and I laughed about how oblivious you were, Lily."
"Then why did you marry me?"
"Because Sophia said she had debts. I love Sophia, but I thought I couldn't marry someone with debts, so I settled for you, Lily."
Loving her, settling for me, how much more do you plan to ridicule me?
"This is the last time, Lily. Let's get a divorce. Sophia said she's finally paid off her debts, so I'm going to marry her."
To Michael, speaking as if it was nothing, I screamed, "Call Sophia right now!" I couldn't think of forgiving either Sophia or Michael. A feeling of vengeance blazed like a flame inside my chest. Michael said,
"Sophia must be sleeping by now,"
and showed concern for Sophia, so I slapped his cheek. After all that he had done, I thought at least one slap was permissible.
"What are you doing?"
Ignoring Michael's anger, I called my parents' house. Instead of Sophia, my mother answered the phone. "What's wrong, Lily? It's late." I explained the situation to my surprised mother through my tears, and she said she would bring Sophia over right away. While waiting for Sophia and my mother to arrive, Michael showed me a signed divorce paper.
I always prepared to divorce you if I felt like it,
boasted Michael, and I shouted back, "Do you think I can bear to be with someone like you?" The doorbell rang, and when I went to the hall, my always calm mother stood quietly, while Sophia had a big smile on her face. "Sis, you finally noticed Michael in me, huh? I thought you'd never notice and grow old without knowing." I felt a chill run down my spine at the sight of Sophia, who had stolen my husband, grinning at me. My mother sat next to me when she came into the house, and Sophia naturally sat next to Michael, leaning against his shoulder. In disbelief at the scene unfolding, I asked Sophia, "Is it true you two have been seeing each other since college?" Sophia admitted with a smile, "Yes. Michael is cool and smart, so I've always been envious of you. I didn't think a wonderful man like Michael would suit an ordinary woman like you." "Don't act like it's only natural after stealing my husband. I will never forgive you two. Never in my life." Sophia clung to Michael and said, "You're scary," when I pronounced it like a curse. Feeling frustrated to the brink of losing control, I shouted at my mother next to me, "What do you think of this, Mom?" Then my mother said something shocking. "It's not a big deal. Michael should just remarry tomorrow." "What?" I was left dumbfounded. Ignoring my astonishment, my mother continued, "It's kind of Michael to marry a girl like Sophia. However, I won't forgive you for causing Lily distress."
I understand.
With my father having passed away, my last bastion was my mother alone. I was taken aback that even my mother had casually accepted the remarriage, and it seems Michael was surprised too. "I have only one condition," my mother told Michael and Sophia. "I cannot forgive Sophia for hurting Lily. I will quit being your mother, so don't accept any help from me. Please remarry with that understanding." The two agreed with a smile. "Then, for Lily's sake, leave quickly," she said, chasing them out. I asked my mother in a trembling voice, "Why did you say it was all right with them?" "Well, those two." I laughed involuntarily when I heard the reason why my mother readily accepted their marriage. I wanted revenge, but there was no doubt that marriage would be the greatest revenge for those two. The married life of Michael and Sophia will definitely be a hardship. Knowing this, I felt a bit brighter. Several months had passed since then. I was heartbroken at first, but I quickly got my energy back. I began to eagerly anticipate when Michael would notice the truth that Sophia was hiding. Though it was heartbreaking to have been cheated on, I now find myself appalled at the fact that I was married to such an unethical man. Then, the day I had been waiting for arrived. The day Michael realized Sophia's lies. This became clear when Michael barged into my home.
Hey, help me!"
In the middle of the night, he was frantically ringing my doorbell, crying out for help. When I asked through the door, "What's going on?" Michael exclaimed through his tears,
"Sophia is chasing me with a knife!"
It must have been truly horrifying as Michael, sobbing, relayed the situation. He had realized the lie Sophia was telling just a few days before. Yes, Sophia's debt repayment was nowhere near completion. Sophia, who adores dressing up, would impulsively buy any clothing or accessories she wanted, even if it meant going into debt. Yet, Sophia hated working and was always out having fun, so her mother had been paying off all Sophia's debts until she remarried. After marrying Sophia and realizing this truth after some time, Michael was furious at being lied to. At first, Sophia cried and apologized, but it seems Michael vented his pent-up frustrations at her. Sophia was incapable of doing any housework, and the house was a complete mess. The house was filled with the things Sophia bought, And when Michael complained about Sophia spending all of his money, Sophia lashed out and brandished a knife. While listening to Michael's cries through the door, I calmly called the police. Of course, I reported that my ex-husband was causing a commotion at my doorstep, and it was frightening. Not to help, knife threatens Michael. When the police promptly arrived and restrained Michael, he screamed,
"No, you've got it wrong! I'm being chased by Sophia with a knife!"
Unaware of the commotion, Sophia arrived, a knife in her hand. She broke into the scene in her worst timing, and she panicked. "Wait, what's happening?" Michael and Sophia were taken away in separate police cars. "I told you, those two could never be happy," my mother later said. "That's why I said it's a good thing." Sometime after, when I visited my parents' house and told them about the incident, my mother smiled and said that. Just as my mother had predicted, Michael and Sophia were unable to lead a peaceful life and continued to have a major row even after being released by the police. Michael, who declared,
"I will definitely get a divorce,"
and Sophia, who was after Michael's money and insisted, "I will definitely not get a divorce." Their opposing views clashed head-on, and the loud arguments soon had them back under police care. "My goodness, they're always causing trouble for the police," my mother sighed. After that, I led a peaceful life, and a few months after the incident, my mother informed me Sophia got a divorce. Sophia's shopping addiction did not break, and it seemed she had spent most of Michael's money by the time of their divorce. Sophia naturally returned to her parents' house, but my mother reportedly kicked her out, saying, "We're no longer family. You're a stranger now." Sophia has lost her place to stay, so now she is reluctantly working to pay off her debts. I received a call from Michael. While answering Michael's call, thinking to myself, I forgot to block his number, he started trying to worry about my mood with a honeyed voice.
"Lily, I didn't realize who really mattered to me. I think I continued dating you because my true feelings were always for you. I'll try my best to get your forgiveness, so please, be with me again."
No, that's creepy. I realized you saw nothing when you cheated on me with Sophia, and I don't need you to tell me something I already know. I said just that with a cold voice, hung up, and then blocked his number. I thought this would be the last time to talk with Michael, but the next morning, as I left home from work, I was shocked to find him crouched outside my apartment.
"Lily!"
As soon as he spotted me, Michael, whose eyes lit up like a puppy's, once looked handsome to me, but now he seemed as repugnant as filth. I ignored him and started to walk away, but Michael started to follow me, saying,
"I'll change my ways,"
and
"I'll do anything to be forgiven."
To that, I only gave him one answer. "I told you, didn't I? I'll never forgive you." Looking at Michael's stunned expression, I thought to myself, why does this idiot think he can be forgiven? And sighed deeply. If you follow me again, I'll have to call the police. If you don't like that, never enter my sight again. The fact that Michael had had a run-in with the police because of Sophia had become the talk of his workplace, and I knew it was making him uncomfortable. Michael had been on the career fast track, but now he is off the track because of Sophia. If he got into trouble with the police again, there's no doubt that he wouldn't be able to stay at his job anymore. Perhaps he understands it, so he hung his head when he heard the word police and stopped following me. Since that day, I haven't seen Michael. After a disastrous marriage, I spent several years thinking, I don't want to fall in love again. Thanks to my dedication to my job, I climbed to the top position among the women in my company. Although I thought I was too busy enjoying my work to think about love, a younger colleague confessed his feelings for me. Despite rejecting him several times, he persisted, saying,
"I'll definitely make you happy."
So I started dating him. Now we live together. The man who appeared in my life, which I knew nothing about beyond Michael, is very kind. And when he found out about my past, he promised, "I will never betray you." I'm still scared of getting married, but I hope that someday I can take that step with him.